What's going on, everyone? Rito here. Today I'm going to do my second For Honor class guide, and this time I will cover the Nobushi Samurai. I will give you a full guide on her moveset, how to use the class effectively, and explain all her strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so let's get started. The Nobushi is a hybrid type samurai, so she combines elements from other hero types. Basically, she is a glass cannon. She hits like a truck, but cannot take a lot of damage. Her weapon also has the longest range in the game and allows you to do some quick jabs from a distance. However, she is also very vulnerable and slow at close range, which might make it difficult to get used to her at first. But once you get the hang of all her moves, she becomes an extremely deadly fighter. Let's start off with the moveset. Just like every other class, she has some basic chain attacks. The first one is a triple light attack combo, so 3 times R1, which is a quick poking chain attack. There's 2 things that make this combo quite powerful. Firstly, if you hit the second R1 attack, then the third R1 attack is a guaranteed hit as well. Secondly, this third R1 attack causes a bleeding effect to your opponent, which is one of the key strengths of this class. The bleeding effect causes damage over time, and furthermore, if an enemy is affected by bleed, then you do extra damage if you hit him again. She has a lot more moves that cause this bleeding effect, but first, let's take a look at the other basic chain attacks. The Hiss and Bite attack is an R1 R2 combo, so you start off with a light attack and follow up with a heavy attack. The Death Rattle form is a double heavy R2 chain attack, and with this combo, the enemy often blocks the first attack but gets hit on the second attack. Nothing too spectacular, but these attacks may come in handy as well. Okay, now on to some special moves. The first special move I want to discuss is the Viper's Retreat, which is not only the easiest one to perform, but in my opinion, also one of the most effective. To do this, move backwards with your left analog stick and then press R1, so a light attack. This move is a quick defensive strike, which causes the bleeding effect, and is great to keep your opponent at a distance. Since the Nobushi is so vulnerable from close range, it is crucial to maintain this distance from your enemy. The Viper's Retreat works wonders, also because it attacks from above, while you don't actually have to aim in that direction. All in all, it's just a great defensive tool. However, keep in mind that if the enemy dodges this attack, then that leaves your flank very vulnerable. Next up is the Cobra Strike. To do this, move either left, right or forward with the left analog stick, dodge with the X button, and then press R1. This is quite an interesting move, because you combine a swift dodge with an attack that also causes the bleed effect. I mainly use this move to break through an enemy's defense, since it's more difficult to block. Then, you can immediately continue with a chain attack, which makes this a nice tool to use. There's also the Cobra Strike Mix Up. To do this, you first have to successfully use a guard break with the square button. Then, press the square button again to kick the enemy away. And finally, hit R1 for a light attack, which is a nice jab that causes the bleeding effect. This move not only creates some distance between you and the enemy, but also does some nice damage because of the bleeding effect. Another special move is the kick. To do this, first attack your opponent with R1 or R2, and then press the square button, so a guard break. Visually, this is my favorite move. It just looks awesome, but it's actually quite a powerful move as well, since this attack cannot be blocked, making it a great tool to keep your attacking chain going. What I normally do is I attack my opponent with a triple R1 light attack combo, follow up with the kick, and then immediately do an R1 combo again, or a forward Cobra Strike. What's great is that the enemy often expects the Nobushi to have a more defensive playstyle, but with this kick, you can catch them off guard and perform a very offensive combo. If you manage to do it correctly, the combo deals a lot of damage. Then, we get to an attack called the Sidewinder Form. To do this, move either left or right with the left analog stick, press X, so the dodge button, and then press R2 for a heavy attack. Personally, I prefer the Cobra Strike over this move because it's easier to chain. But the Sidewinder Form can still be a nice tool to mix things up because it hits a wider zone. Basically, This move can deal some quick and simple damage to your opponent, chipping away his HP. Next up is the hidden stance. To do this, you just have to aim backwards with your right analog stick. What it does is that it hides the direction you're looking at. Basically, it's a stance that allows you to attack in a direction without your opponent knowing which direction. However, in this stance, you're also vulnerable from all sides. You won't be able to block any incoming attacks. It's a trade-off. It makes it a lot easier to hit the enemy, but obviously, it also leaves you very vulnerable. You can still dodge though when you're in the hidden stance, so make sure to keep that in mind. A more defensive move is the swift recoil. To do this, you have to press the dodge button, so X on PS4, after you blocked an attack. I have some mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I think it's really nice, because it creates some distance between you and your enemy, and you're ready to make a move straight away. However, with a controller, you have to take your thumb off the right analog stick to press X. This actually makes you vulnerable, because you then can't change your blocking direction as fast as often needed. So yes, the extra distance is nice, but I hardly ever use the swift recoil, because I want to keep my thumb on the right analog stick as much as possible. The last two attacks are two special running moves. To use the Slithering thrust, while running, you have to press the R1 light attack button. To use the Coiling slash, again, while running, you have to press the R2 heavy attack button. Both these attacks are not quite useful for the 1v1 duel game mode, but they can be nice to chase down an enemy in a 4v4 game mode. Okay, so those were all the special moves. Now on to some tactics. As I said before, the Nobushi is powerful from long range, but vulnerable from short range. Therefore, it is essential that you keep your enemy at a distance. If he is rushing towards you, try to push him back with a Viper's Retreat move, or dodge and use a Cobra Strike, after which you can attack. If he does end up right in front of you, try not to attack him immediately, but instead, just keep your cool and block as much as possible. Once he has to recover from his attacks, use a guard break, kick him away, and use a combo. If you're having a difficult time blocking his attacks, try dodging, or perhaps even a zone attack if you have the opportunity. Once you manage to keep your opponent away from you, then you can try to capitalize on your long range. Try to hit him with a light attack, either just by pressing R1, or for example by using a Cobra Strike special move. Once you get that first hit, then it's time to get a chain attack going. The triple R1 light attack combo is probably the most useful one, but remember to switch up the direction of your attacks during the combo. So for example, you begin with an attack on the right side, then immediately switch to the left and finish off with an attack from above. This makes it very hard for your opponent to block. Once you get that third hit, which you can recognize by the purple color of your weapon due to the bleeding effect, then you can continue your chain with a kick move. After the kick, you can continue the chain, for example by doing another R1 combo. If you time it correctly, you can keep your chain going until you run out of stamina, and at this point, your opponent is probably almost dead. However, it's better to stop your chain attack while you still have a bit of stamina left. That way, you are able to back off again, get to safety, and regain your stamina. It's pretty easy to run out of stamina with the Nobushi, leaving you very vulnerable, so keep an eye on that and don't get too greedy. If you're out of stamina, you can't use special moves and your attacks become slower, so try to avoid that, or otherwise try to regain your stamina as quickly as possible by playing defensively. Lastly, try to inflict a bleeding effect as often as possible. If your opponent is constantly getting that damage over time, then you keep the pressure on him. That way, he's going to play uncomfortably and might rush uncontrolled and simply die slowly but surely. All in all, the most important thing with the Nobushi is to force your opponent to play the match the way you want to. Keep him at a distance and use that long range. Take the initiative and put the pressure on him. Once you have him where you want him, get that combo going and capitalize on the power of the Nobushi. There is still a lot left to learn, for me as well, but for now, this is going to be the end of the commentary. I hope you learned something useful, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. Thank you all very much for watching. I am Rito, and I wish you all a very good day.
してまいる